Blue Sky Studios has a lot of forgotten movies. Horton, their final film, that weird one about a bull. There's a lot to talk about there. Hell, they're close to being a forgotten studio at this point. I know stuff like Robots and like Rio Duology and Peanuts movie maybe have fan bases, but they're still not really that talked about. There's only two things this company is known for. One is making all the Ice Age movies and running that franchise into the ground, and two is getting shut down in 2019 before they could make Nimona. Yeah, one of the things they're famous for is that there is for something they didn't do. Now, isn't that sad? So, when picking a movie from them to do for this series, this will probably not be the last episode focusing on their studio. But I, of course, had to go with the one I have the most nostalgia for. And that is the movie Epic. Before we start, and before I've rewatched this movie, that is a terrible title. A shit title. It just looks at you, it just says, like this movie. What? Now let's begin this epic video. Every single movie we've covered in this series so far, and probably every single movie I will ever cover in this series, it is based on a book. The book in question is called The Leaf Men and the Brave Good Bugs, and it's the first book to not have a Wikipedia page. Luckily, I actually watched a storytelling video on it, so I now know the book. Shout out to the storyteller. You should see that video there then. It's just a kid's storyteller. I watched it. It's cool, I guess. The book just seems like a decent, little children's book. And it's about... It seems very different from a movie, judging from my memory. It was a scientist studying the bugs and the leaf men, as they call them. And his daughter not believing them until she gets shrunk down, and all that stuff. And there's a twist in which so in the book, though, it's more about the bugs and them fighting to keep the garden alive with against their arch enemy, the Spider Queen. It's an interesting book. I'm kind of surprised I like it as much as I did. And they're also saving this old lady who is literally dying, and it goes a little dark there. Don't fully know what to say, but yeah, that's the Leaf Men and the Brave Good Bugs. Even though it's pretty long and the movie probably isn't about the bugs, but I assume that would be a better title than Epic. Now that's done, let's get into the production. As this movie's production seems to be the most troubled since Rise of the Guardians, our first entry on this list. Although, from what I can see, it was nowhere near as troubled as that example. It was reported in 2006 that director Chris Wedge, previously the director of hits such as Ice Age and Robots, will be directing a movie based on the book we just talked about. And it will be made by Fox Animation. However, Fox at one point lost confidence in the project, but Wedge was still interested. So he got permission to move it and decided to turn to a company in which he had a good relationship with the CEO. That company and the CEO he was good friends with was John Lasseter, and that company was Pixar. Yes, this might have been a Pixar movie. Obviously, it would have been very different, I imagine, but yeah, it would have. What's interesting is it would have been Pixar's first ever adaptation at the time. Now that title belongs to nothing! Somehow, there is still no adaptation made with Pixar. Apparently, according to controversy, people are complaining about Pixar's not making original movies. There is still yet to be a Pixar movie which is an adaptation. Every single movie from Pixar is either an original film or a sequel to an original movie. So yeah, I mean, who even knows at this point? It's fun to speculate because maybe we'll be more lenient if this movie was made. Yeah. So when Pixar tried to close the rights, Fox changed their mind and the film returned to them and was officially greenlit in 2009. But 2009, it was under the title Leaf Men, which would probably be way better. In May 2012, the new title is announced. While according to Wedge, he hated the renaming. No surprise there. Now, the book had been significantly changed with the adventure on Star Wars, as Wedge said. So yeah. So the production seemed to go weirdly after. It took 7 years to actually go. I mean, seriously. Now that we've covered that, let's actually watch the movie and review it right now. See if this movie holds up in any way. Let's see if epic is epic. So the movie Epic is not epic. It's still pretty good, but I would hardly call it epic. That's stretching it a bit. So the main movie is about them chasing after a pod. And I these 5 characters, and they're trying to protect a pod from hatching into a queen, or something, kind of. it's a little weird, but like a queen dies and they have to race against time to save the forest by protecting the pod from the villain, who is one of the weakest things about this movie, but we'll get to that later. After all, the main character, MK. I think she's pretty cool. She's interesting in how, well, she's a typical protagonist who, like, is oblivious to the world and doesn't believe any of it is real, or, like, all that kind of jazz. And, to be fair, they don't pull it off in that unique way. But I like this kind of character archetype anyway, so it doesn't really bother me that much that it's there, because I like this trope, even if all these characters are the same. Now, the romantic subplot with Nod, I like Nod as a character. He's the best character in the movie. Well, maybe Ronan is. Actually, no, he's not. But, actually, no, neither of them are. But, never mind. Nod is pretty good. He's, like, he's, like, failure and gets back into things. And he's interesting, but his relationship with MK, the romance is barely built up, and I don't like it. They just randomly kiss at the end, and it's not really helped. Ronan is a great fighter, and I like his bravery and his protectiveness. I also like his snarkiness, like he's not afraid to get snarky, he's not entirely serious. His back and forth with Nod is fantastic. He is really funny as well. My favourite character in the movie, by far though, has got to be the character of Nimgalu, who is the wise old glowworm or something. He's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Best part of this movie by far. He brings so much jokes and so much stuff to the table that I really quite like him. A lot of scenes with him, like the scrolls, like he random, like when he's first introduced, he breaks out into song, which made me think, wait, is this a musical? No, that's the only song, but it's hilarious on how it happens. I mean, like, did he really just intend to rhyme that with dead? Like, how is that, boss? How is that a coincidence? It's funny. It's really funny. He's the best comic relief of the movie. Now, the other characters, the other comic reliefs, Mub and Grub, are terrible. Well, I don't mind the snail. He can be a bit annoying, but mostly he's okay. His ongoing gag where he wants to join the Leaf people, it doesn't bother me. And it's pretty funny at some points. But Mub, I think that's who it is. I get mixed up between these two. Is terrible. He is so annoying, and like he has and he just walks about in slime. It just doesn't feel right. And mean to his best friend too. It does not fit. Why did I agree? I agree. Not leaving it with the slugs is like the worst thing to do, because it did leave the villain, who is called Mandrake, who is the leader of the Bargains, which is a dumb name for like a villain species, because that's what they are. They're a villain species. This guy is wants to destroy the forest because, well, I don't know, he looks evil and he sounds evil, so he's evil and wants to do an evil plan. I promise this movie's environmental message is not, it's not shoved in, it's not ingrained in, it's not half-assed. It's very subtle, believe it or not. It's a minor part of the movie. The villain is pretty dull. He has his rivalry with Ronan. Maybe if we got like flash or more on his backstory or like an actual motive, then I might like him more. His defeat is okay, and he's threatening enough, I guess, but this could just have a stronger villain. But this movie is mostly good. Again, I really like the story. One thing I didn't like is the ending. Like, there was like the beginning where this like child flower girl said, "Why can't I be queen?" And at the end, she becomes queen. Like, that beginning scene was foreshadowing a random foreshadowing something. This flower isn't in the movie, like, for like all of it except the beginning and end, so it just comes out of nowhere. Like, I was expecting something weird like MK's the queen, but I do remember she turns back big, so I don't know. But the sunflower who said she wanted to be queen at the beginning of the movie is actually the queen at the end of the movie. Because, well, we needed an ending. So, I'm guessing that scene was put at the beginning of the movie just so they can have an ending because we couldn't think of it. Because they had no idea what to do when it bloomed under the full moon and all that. It's other things. Well, it was completely obvious that Mandrake took the pages, but I think it might have been supposed to be. MK's scientist's dad, weird character, not a big fan of him. Feel like MK's relationship was done with that, and like I think the breakup in Act 1 is done way too quickly, and we should have seen more scenes of them together fighting, not just like one scene of her telling him what's what, telling him that he's an idiot. Multiple scenes of that. But he's okay, I guess. But his reconciliation end is not one of my favourite parts of the movie. Overall, I think this movie's pretty cool. So yeah, that's Epic. A pretty good movie. 8 out of 10, I guess. I like a lot of it. And I think it's a very underrated movie. Well, if I didn't think it was these movies are for underrated movies. All movies I just find interesting. I am yet to find a movie in this series which I don't like. Because every movie in this series so far I like. Let's see if that changes with the next installment. Over installment after that. Over installment after that. Over installment. I'll stop now. Now let's get into how the movie was received. As we do. The movie did okay at the box office. Not great, but still decent. Better than the first two movies in this series for sure. It also got a decent result on critics. Not the best, but still decent. it has a 64% of Rotten Tomatoes, for example, which is still fresh, but it's just a little bit off. It's... Most people say it's okay, and I can see that. I can see why most people think it's just an average movie. So, this movie was moderately received. Now that's all the stuff we have to cover in this video. This is actually the first movie in this series that does not have any other material to review. I went on a whole tangent before with the home TV show. Rise of the Guardians had a video game, and Alexander was an entire franchise, and even has a sequel planned. This movie has nothing. Let me tell you, I think a sequel to this movie would have really worked out. I mean, why not? It wasn't a big success, but it wasn't a failure either. Why not try it out, Blue Sky? Why didn't you try it out? The sequel might have been epica. Wait, that's not a word. More epic. The movie wasn't epic. But never mind. But I think a sequel to this movie would have been pretty good. But overall, I'm happy with what we got, I guess. So yeah, that's my video. Epic is a good movie, and I wish I could have seen more from this franchise. This movie should have been more successful than it was, and more critically received than it was, but if it was going to be this way, well, I guess I'm glad it didn't turn out like Ice Age. Now, let's get to the question. Why does no one remember Epic? Well, the world kind of had a lukewarm feeling to it. Again, they thought it was just okay, and movies people think are just okay. I don't really think they stay in people's minds that much. Movies that did okay at the box office and did okay critically aren't going to get talked about much. Movies that everyone hates and everyone loves are obviously going to get talked about. This movie obviously didn't get any of that. Everyone thought that this movie was and movies people think are don't really get that much attention. Box office bombs get more attention than like box office mess sometimes, don't they? I mean, it's kind of straightforward. And again, Blue Sky never did anything more with this movie. It's the first one which I can't call it a franchise because, well, got nothing. There was nothing else in this movie, and that's very unique to this series, surprisingly enough. But I like this movie, and I want you to show it some support. But I think I've made what is a decent little video on it. The movie might not have been epic, but this video certainly was. Okay, no, it certainly wasn't. Okay, maybe it wasn't. But you should like this video and subscribe anyway if you think it's epic or kind of close to it. But if you hated this video and think it's the most least epic thing ever, then leave a dislike and a hate comment because we like to keep the algorithm happy. And I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.